I am a member of a cult. I mean, it's not like this cult. We don't dance and stuff. It's also not some creepy Jim Jones shit like this, but what my cult worships certainly does scare a whole lot of people. I'm talking about the northern snakehead, an invasive fish that science told us would destroy every ecosystem it entered. But 20 years have now passed, and science has been largely proven wrong. But that doesn't stop people from hating these fish. Wrongly, in my opinion, and in the opinion of a growing number of snakehead cult members that look past the negative hype and focus on what makes snakeheads such a blast to target with a rod and reel. So, are you a non-believer? 33.5-inch snakehead. Or are you ready to ride the snake? I'm Joe Cermele, and this is Fishing on the B-Side. I'm in Virginia to meet up with high-ranking cult member Grant Alvis and check out his snakehead congregation, which we'll just say gathers on one of the many larger rivers that feeds Chesapeake Bay. Now, I've drank gallons of snakehead Kool-Aid, but Grant's guzzled a lot more. How much more? About $37,000 worth. I've been itching to fish with Grant because he's the first and only guy I know that's gone all in on a brand new Florida-style flat skiff, complete with a poling platform, for the primary purpose of snakeheading. How has having a boat like this changed your program?
Oh, thousandfold.
You can get into some shit that nobody else around here can touch,
I mean,
right?
boat will float in 5 inches of water. Not just to mention having the range. I mean, I can run roughly 50 miles on one tank of gas. Not that I ever really run that far, but
pressure on snakeheads from both conventional anglers and bow fishermen only continues to increase, and like most species, snakeheads respond to that pressure. But Grant's boat gives him an edge. This sled will take us to the way, way back stickiest of the icky that your average John boat can't navigate, and into creeks that are too far from launch points for the average kayaker to paddle up. This is where the big, unpressured snakes live, and Grant's ability to reach and catch them has earned him a reputation as one of the snakiest dudes in the state. Oh, and by the way, this slick-ass boat isn't a business expense. Grant's not a full-time guide or anything. He's a UPS driver, and just a snake-obsessed guy like me that's 28, not married, doesn't have kids, so he can throw money at nice boats. Am I jealous? Yes. Yes, I am. Anyway, now that this slick-ass boat has done its job and gotten us back into the juicy stuff, we can start making our ceremonial frog sacrifices while trying to convert new members. Snakeheads live and hunt in skinny water, and if you're a topwater freak, well, this fish is made for you, my child. Weedless surface baits like hollow body frogs and buzzing toads are the foremost takers of snakers. See what I did there? But because they have such a wide head, these fish move a lot of water and push away when they rush your bait. Often, though not always, you'll get the warning. You'll see the fish engage, sometimes from 12 or 15 feet away, and it's the elevation in your heart rate that comes with this engagement that's so damned addicting. Then, you've got to finesse that fish, tease it, pause, twitch, speed up, slow down, figuring out the formula in just a matter of seconds that will coax it to deliver its final deep-sucking death blow.
He's on it. Hit that.
Yeah, dude! Grant rang the starting bell with a solid 6-pounder, and a pretty one at that. In areas north of here, where snakeheads haven't existed quite as long as they have in Virginia and Maryland, this would be a great fish. On Grant's turf, it's just kinda respectable, if not sorta average. I've come here looking for the giants, and while this isn't one, I can tell you what it is.
That's our eater though, bro.
that's lunchtime.
Contrary to popular and inaccurate belief, you don't have to kill snakeheads by order of law. In Virginia, it's perfectly legal to release them as long as you do so in the same order you caught them in, but as soon as they go in a cooler or live well for transport, then they have to be dead. Much like with largemouth bass zealots, a double-digit specimen is the ultimate prize of a devout snakeheader. I've been chasing that benchmark for 7 years now, mostly in New Jersey, where in all that time, I can't swear I've even put eyes on a true 10, let alone caught it. But as Grant pushed farther and farther up these creeks, man, I could feel it. Good anglers have that spidey sense that just sort of tells you you're in the right place.
Got him.
He gone.
Oh, he came off.
He gone. That's all right. I mean, thank God that one wasn't a 10-pounder because I just totally googened the hook set. But the next one, I didn't miss.
That's your 10-pounder.
Is that my 10? Did you calling it?
I don't know. He's thick.
He's thick. My personal best is 8.5.
Oh, that's bigger than that.
So even though this might not be 10, thinking it's bigger than 8.5.
9 on the dot.
9 on the nuts. Are we gonna break 10 with the great Grant Alvis? I don't know, but that's a 9er. Morning 1, personal best. How about it? We're gonna let this one go though. Ah, so close, but that's okay. We can only go up from here, right? What also happens to be coming up is the tide. The more flooded all this vegetation becomes, the more it allows the snakeheads to spread out, which diminishes your chances of getting a frog in front of them. So we decided to take a little break for some light refreshments following this morning's service. People forget that one of the primary reasons snakeheads ended up in this country is that they were smuggled in to eat. In eastern China, North and South Korea, and southeastern Russia, where this particular species is native, they are considered a delicacy. Now, delicacy usually means an acquired taste, right? But I've never fed snakehead to anyone that didn't acquire that taste immediately. We're just going to keep it simple and fire up some tacos. We're just going to do flour, a little bit of flour, and a little bit of MeatEater Mermaid's Trident, which you should buy. The meat is white and firmer than most freshwater fish, more akin, in my opinion, to a piece of snapper or grouper. It's also very mild, but not bland. It has a distinct, clean flavor. Far cleaner, I'd say, than your average river catfish, because while snakes live in mucky, muddy places, they do very little of their feeding on the bottom.
Take it over walleye any day. Any day over walleye.
Now, Grant and I have eaten a bunch of these, so just in case you think we're biased, here's a word I shot from my Instagram story from our camera operator and first-time snakehead consumer, Tom Nakasone.
Snakehead tacos. How is it?
Fantastic.
Yes, that is good.
So, with bellies full of snake and hot sauce, we re-rigged, had a little rain delay,
Sucks.
but eventually got back out there to hit the outgoing tide change. And it didn't take long to find our next player. Similar to muskies, the take and that first burst of energy when you hit a snakehead is the magic. It's not the fight. I mean, snakes aren't exactly dumping the spool, but also similar to muskies, you don't want to target these fish with ultra-light tackle. You need the ability to muscle them. All the pieces of your kit have to harmonize for success, starting with your frog. And since, spoiler alert, our final few hours of day one were snakeless, let's break down a few frog tricks that will lead to faster, more efficient Kermit massacres in our Emmy-nominated Talkin' Shit segment. The shit that we're going to talk about is prepping your hollow body frogs for snakehead battle to increase the odds that you emerge victorious and are able to plant your flag atop Fish Fry Hill. While hollow body frogs are arguably the most effective lure for throwing into thick pads and other serious sticky icky that snakeheads love, connecting with them can be a challenge. I mean, for starters, you gotta train yourself to resist the urge to set the hook right when the fish hits, instead giving it a few seconds to turn and a few seconds to compress that frog in its mouth. Now, because snakeheads have such rock-hard jaws, when you do swing, you need to hit them with a lot of force, which is why you want a frog with a heavy stick and be spooled up with at least 40-pound braid. Next time you're looking at the frog wall over there at the Bass Pro, you might notice that a lot of those baits come with hooks that are angled downward. So, to increase the odds that those hooks dig in, it's smart to bend the points up slightly. With the hooks bent upward, that frog body now requires less compression before the points are exposed, increasing the chances that it will dig deep into a snakehead jaw when you cross its eyes or dot its lowercase j's. As a loose general rule and guideline, Grant actually likes to bend his hooks up until the points are even with the bait's back, and notes that doing so doesn't really compromise the weedlessness of the bait. Now, whenever you're frogging, naturally what you're hoping for is that big, massive toilet flush kind of take, but snakeheads, pressured ones in particular, have a nasty habit of sometimes just following a frog and nudging it and mouthing it kind of half-heartedly. So to combat this, I always trim the legs of my frogs, just in case I get one of these non-committal fish, and that way it has a little bit less to nip at and maybe increases the chances that it'll get closer to the body. Just remember, those legs are what create drag and water resistance and help your frog walk correctly, so don't overdo it. Just take an inch to an inch and a half right off the top and you'll be looking snazzy at the senior prom.
Heads up, Tom. I f***ing nutshotted him. Dude, are your testicles all right?
Right here.
As Tom contemplated whether or not he'd be able to have any more children, Grant and I took advantage of the low light and perfect tide conditions that next morning. The fish were feeling frisky, and not just the snakeheads.
Oh, Larry, you so crazy. Where's the snakes?
Nobody worried more about the impacts of snakeheads than the largemouth crowd. But in 20 years of study, there has been no significant evidence that snakeheads have adversely affected bass populations, especially within a massive system like this one. Snakeheads have essentially carved out a space in the ecosystem. There is balance. For as many bass fry as a snakehead might eat, the bass eat just as many snakehead fry, and while there's no denying that snakeheads will chow on juvenile game fish, in 7 years of cleaning them, I've never found anything but aquatic insects, crayfish, and common bait fish species in their stomachs.
Yeah, man. Pretty slack tide. Wrong time, right fish.
Yep. That's all that matters.
Another thing I love about snakeheads is that during the dog days of summer, when everything else gets a little lazier and sluggish and harder to pattern, snakes are out there digging the heat. Of course, when you're stuck out here waiting for a tide switch and you're sweating your ass off while sunscreen melts into your eyeballs, it kind of sucks for you. Thankfully, Mother Nature provided a fun little way to kill some time between primo snake tides.
There's so many long-nosed gar in this spot right now. The water is so clear, it is so wind-free and calm. We're gonna throw some flies at some gar. Why not check something else off the bucket list? I've never caught a gar on fly.
Oh, son. This was actually so much fun that I'm sorry we didn't do it earlier, but trying to make a fly stick between two needles isn't exactly what I came for.
Should we go back to snaking now? We both kind of scratched that itch, huh?
Yeah, why not?
My double-digit snake was still out there somewhere. After the tide flipped and with time running out, Grant pushed that boat of his farther than he had yet. In fact, we ended up so far up a skinny creek that we got blocked off by a beaver dam. And when Grant told me to just chuck my frog right over it, I listened. The second I set the hook on this fish, I knew it was the one. I also knew we were now in a very sticky and highly precarious situation. Grant had no choice but to jump out onto the beaver dam if we had any hope of landing this absolute beast. I watched in terror as Grant tried to use the net like a shovel to scoop this pissed off giant off of that dam. What you can't hear is me begging, pleading, and screaming at poor brother Grant to please just get that thing in the net.
We are muddy, we are bloody, but holy have I been waiting a long time for this fish right here.
What a giant. That is, dude, look at him at the bottom of the boat. That is a big one.
Wasn't expecting that to happen.
11 pounds.
11 pounds. And what a way to do it. There were a million things that should have gone wrong there. I can't believe it. I'm flabbergasted. 33.5-inch, 11-pound snake. 7 years I've been snakehead fishing, trying to get one over 10. Look at the head. Look at that. Look how thick the head is on that fish.
Compare his head to
Yeah, compared to Grant's hand.
wider than your hand.
We're gonna let this fish go, but you're pretty insistent that this fish's home is above that beaver dam.
Yeah, a fish that size, especially this time of year, if he's up there and dark as he is right now, we got his real dark colors on, he's probably spawning. So
you're gonna jump out with this fish and put it back on top of the beaver dam.
If I didn't like Grant enough for his dedication to finding big snakes, I liked him more after seeing his dedication to treating them with some respect. I mean, look, let's not bullshit each other. A bunch of you have listened to our sermon, but it doesn't mean you'll change your ways or views about these invasives. And you know what? That's totally cool. Nobody says you have to like them, but the point we're trying to make is there aren't many good reasons to truly despise them unless you just blindly hate on whatever the people on TV tell you to. And that's not you, right? You don't drink the Kool-Aid that easily, do you? But just in case it'll only take one more swig of the Kool-Aid we're serving to bring you back to services next Sunday, how about one more double-digit swig as we process out?
That looks like a good one when I saw the back.
Jesus, it's another good one.
It's another 10 pound. Oh my God.
Jesus.
He's 10 1/4.
10 1/4 pounds on that one, and it's like, since we just got an 11, it's like, we just caught an 11? Not that big a deal. Not that big a deal that 30 minutes later I just got a 10 1/4. What a day it's been for me.